Hello. All right. Welcome everyone. My name is Isabel. I'm the founder of I Like Networking, which is a career platform for the creative industries. I'm really excited to present this workshop / Q&A with Ipsy, who are one of our partners. And as you know, we are a social enterprise, so we're always very grateful to have organizations that provide services for the creative industries and the creative community at large, supporting our work. So the way this is going to run, as mentioned, is we're going to have a very chill conversation about freelancing in general. We collated a bunch of questions and I'll try to get to as many as I can with that from the list that we already have. But on that note, if you have other questions here, please pop them in the chat and I'm going to do my best to get to as many as we can in the time allowed. Otherwise, we can always do more like this. Just a few notes, yeah, if you can pop it in the chat, please let us know. I think because a lot of you are going to be freelancers here, it would be great if you can all, just do a quick introduction of what it is that you do. So in case someone else wants to work with you or you can collaborate on something, can use this opportunity to network and start building your own little community. So with that said, we have Vix Rodwell here representing Team Ipsy. And I would love for her to come and first introduce herself and her role at Ipsy. And then she's going to tell us a little bit about what Ipsy is, what it means, and how it might be a good opportunity or a good tool for people starting out in their freelancing career. So Vix, I'm going to hand it over to you first.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you all at lunchtime. So I am Director of Membership at Ipsy. I've been working there for about 4 years now, actually, not far off my 4-year anniversary. I joined just before the pandemic, so I've seen all sorts of weird and wonderful things over the last 4 years. And Ipsy is a membership body completely dedicated to self-employed people. So everything we do is completely focused on making self-employment a sustainable career choice. You have to excuse my voice, it's going to go in and out a little bit as I've got a bit of a cold. And where everybody that works at Ipsy is completely passionate and motivated towards just making self-employment as sustainable as possible, so that everybody that chooses to work that way can love their career and get whatever it is out of it they would like to, because so many people go into it for so many different reasons. And that's one of the fantastic things about Ipsy, is we get exposed to such a wealth of interesting people that are completely passionate about what they do. And we love our community, which is a big part of who we are. We love bringing people together, understanding what it is that motivates them, and then we sort of take all that knowledge and then we try and process that into essentially a membership, so people can join. There's lots of perks and benefits that come with the membership. So for example, we have things like co-working membership, we have the world supply of advice that you could possibly need. We're there to sort of make sure whatever those little niggle questions are at the back of your mind, we've nearly always got an answer. Or if we don't have an answer, we certainly know somebody that does. And then we also build in sort of protection elements to our membership as well. So, we find that a lot of self-employed people are excellent at what they do, but sometimes they don't always have the full sort of business knowledge and protection elements built in to make sure that they're covered on a rainy day. So we do have some insurances that are built in as part of our membership as an optional extra, knowing that you can just kind of get on with what you're doing. And if the worst does happen, you've got a full team of people there to support you with like lawyers and advisors that will help you kind of fight the good fight and make sure HMRC doesn't take any more money than they deserve from you. And then the other kind of arm to us as well is we have a big lobbying arm. So again, because we're really passionate about making self-employment the best it can be, we do go into government and we kind of negotiate at the highest levels with MPs and backbenchers and people in opposition as well as those in power, just sort of putting across how we think the landscape should be which again, you know, we need that community to feed into us, sort of that one voice. We then collect it and deliver it as a large community, saying this is what people need. This is the issues that are affecting them, such as late payments or tax legislation and that type of thing. And sometimes we win, and sometimes, you know, we live to fight another day. So it just kind of depends what's on the agenda. And excuse me. One of the other areas we do offer support as well is for people right at the start of their self-employed journey. We genuinely believe we can have quite a lot of impact at that point, because we run an incubator that kind of gives you everything that you need in that first 12 months, saves you a lot of time and stress, and we just kind of give it to you so that you can kind of use it as and when you need it to make sure that you're building really good foundations for your business. So that's us kind of in a nutshell. Hopefully that's a good starting point. And then obviously we can dig a little deeper as we go through the questions.
I was muting myself. So yeah, we received a lot of questions about things such as how do you register with HMRC, how to get your UTR number, should you be a sole trader, should you register as a small business, and things like that. And so I think this would be really key, right? Because you do have a helpline of people that can answer those questions properly.
Yeah, we do. So yeah, we partner with our sort of, one of our key partners is an insurance provider called Markel, and they actually provide, as part of the membership, a tax and a legal helpline, which is fantastic because, you know, we're not, you know, industry experts on that, so we sort of essentially provide this service as part of the membership. And you can ring up the legal helplines 24 hours 7 days a week. The tax one is 9 to 5 Monday to Friday. So yeah, any kind of like minor questions you might have, they're fantastic. They're really, really good. You basically just sort of call up, leave your membership number, and then they could call you back normally within an hour. And then you've got an expert on the line, which is fantastic. And they cover all aspects of tax and law as well. So they pretty much know all the answers. And then sometimes the advice will be then come back to our website, because we have a full business hub that's also provided by Markel, that's written by lawyers and all sorts of clever content people. So there's thousands of templates, contracts, you name it, you know, anything that you need. There's late payment letters, everything that you could possibly need, you can find in there, which again saves you loads of time if you're sort of chasing a bad debt or want a statement of work, or, you know, whatever it might be that you need to kind of win that next contract. So they're a fantastic partner to work with, and they sort of make sure that our members are very well looked after, and they have really good customer service feedback as well, which is great for us because it means our members are happy.
Amazing. So if anyone has any questions, please pop them in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to try to go through got over 45 questions that we have made notes, but we're going to see what we can come with. So the first thing one question that we got a lot is, how do you charge people when they're not paying you? Do you do late fees? So I think this is something important to know. I personally add a late fee clause, sort of, there's something you can write on your invoice software. We at Airline Working use QuickBooks right now, and you just put in that, you know, if it's not paid by a certain date, there will be a late fee that will be added to the next invoice. And I think this is pretty standard for most freelancing work. If you can do it manually, of course, but then you can also include that on a software that you can use. So there's like QuickBooks, Xero, Underpin had an invoice platform as well. So there's a lot of different tools that you can use. And the good thing about using a software, in my opinion, is that it reminds, you can immediately email from the platform the person saying like your invoice is due or invoice is late, without having to then chase immediately the client. But I don't know, Vix, is that something you recommend as well? I mean,
Yeah, we always recommend that you build that in. It's something you can put in your contract as well. The standard rate is kind of 8% plus the base rate, which we always recommend we do. We do hear that unfortunately, I think the average freelancer will have every year around £5,000 worth of unpaid debt, because unfortunately a lot of clients are bad at paying, and it can be for a number of reasons. Sometimes, you know, they just haven't seen your emails, so it's always good to really kind of manage those relationships. If you can get a good relationship with your client and you know who the right person is to chase, or who it is in finance that you need to chase, you know, you are going to have to dedicate a certain amount of time every month to chasing those invoices. It is a fact of life. So it's a good thing as well on when you're looking at your sort of P&L, try and build in that buffer. Expect the worst, but hopefully you get great clients who actually pay on time. And again, it's a good judge that, you know, if you build in that late fee and somebody repeatedly doesn't pay you, then perhaps you don't want to work with them in the future. But that's the nice thing of being freelance. You can be a bit pickier on that.
Yes, absolutely. And another thing about having a community of people around you is that you can always ask, has anyone worked with this person? How was the process? And we do this at Networking. We have a community of people that do, for instance, public speaking workshops, and we always share if there are questions, if someone is in a pickle, what have they done before? So I think it's key to remember that you don't have to do it all on your own. Building on that, on the late clause fee, I think another question we got a lot is how do you set a day rate, and then deciding which work to take. So there's a sort of a rule of thumb that people recommend for freelancing. So you put your basic salary, add 30%, and then divide it by 220 days, because that's sort of an estimate of the total number of days that you're probably going to work in a year. So, you know, that, you know, includes holidays and being sick and not having any jobs or having, you know, slow periods. But of course, it's like a very just an estimate, basically. But, you know, if you tell yourself, well, I want to have a 50,000 pounds salary, so you add 30%, that's 65,000, and then divided by 2020, then your day rate will be 295 or maybe 300 a rate. Now, obviously, that's going to depend on your expertise, on how long you've been doing this, what type of client, the type of contract. You know, longer contracts with the same client will probably have a different type of pricing. And if you're doing this part-time alongside a full-time job, so this is just like a estimate, really, just so you have an understanding. But another way to do this is to put together all of your costs, so you understand really what you need to be making to pay for all of that. Because as Vix was saying, there are costs attached to being a freelancer. You are like a tiny organization, so you will likely need insurance, so some type of insurance, right, which you can get advice at the helpline, but public liability insurance and things like that. If you end up hiring someone to work with you, you're going to have insurance for that. You might want any other type of insurance for your home or for your office. You know, you're going to have office costs, perhaps. I mean, if you're in London and you're with the Team Ipsy community, that you can use the free that they have, but obviously you need to put all of that. If you do a lot of work where you need to go to people, then there's transportation costs, and I can pop a few links at the end for some of those reasons. But I think that's a good way to start figuring out your day rate, and also have a little bit of a benchmark with other people in the field, like how much are they charging, obviously how much experience do they have, because you're gonna have to adapt. But yeah, I don't know, fix anything that I said that was terrible.
No, it's all pretty spot on with what we kind of say as well, because I mean we do find that a lot of females actually undersell their worth. So something to keep in mind, ladies. You know, don't let that imposter syndrome get in the way. But then obviously you do have to keep in mind at the end of the day your level of experience and what the client is also, you know, hoping to get from you. So it is always sort of balancing that. I mean, I have a friend who's self-employed, and he kind of went along the lines of, for every new client he got, he actually kept putting his price up incrementally each time until somebody actually started to push back on the pricing. And then that gave him a rough measure that maybe he was starting to reach the kind of top end of what his skill set at that particular point was worth. And he found that quite an interesting process to go through. You know, because sometimes when you're starting out, obviously you just want to win the work. So, you know, early days, you might be slightly underpaid. But again, it's also getting that balance on how much free work do you want to do in comparison to paid work as well, because there's definitely an element that people overservice, which again is where the statement of work can come in quite helpful. So you've got really clear parameters on what you're actually going to deliver to make sure you are working for the money that's being paid. But there is no exact science to it. It is a case of you constantly need to iterate and, again, use the community, like Isabel said, sort of try and find out what other people doing similar stuff to you are charging, and you'll get a rough idea of whether it's right or not.
Exactly, yeah. And there is a bit of trial and error element to it. But yeah, those are just ways to get started. On that note of getting started, I received a lot of questions about how to get started, how do you get clients, how do you find clients online, how do I find my first client, what strategies have you found most effective for acquiring projects or clients? So we had a session a few weeks ago, maybe, with Sinead, who's one of other networking's mentors, and I'll refer to her account. She talks a lot about finding clients. Lucy Werner as well talks a bunch about personal branding, selling her services, and so on. So there are different strategies, especially depending on the type of work. But in my personal strategy growing up in the industry, there has been mainly, I guess, three things. One is word of mouth is a big one. So if you get one client and you deliver a really good job, the likelihood that they will, one, hire you again and then refer you to someone else is huge. But one thing to do from the get-go, something that I didn't do at the beginning of my career, is to then try to get a testimonial or any sort of social proof of your work. You can say like, oh, the job I did increased their social engagement for 30% in this amount of time with this budget, or get a testimonial from them telling people how it was to work with you. All of those things are really good. Ask for permission ahead of time so that you can have that as part of your brand. Another thing is to try and build relationships with people to bring them to your services. So this could be, you can host a workshop, or people did a lot of Instagram lives at one point, or you can write for publications, or you can have your own like Substack or Medium channel where you write about your particular expertise and then people come to you. I mean, LinkedIn is an incredible tool to do that, depending on what type of service you offer, but that's something that's very common. You see a lot of service providers there, especially people who are in strategy or business coaches or, things around that area. People will then find other people on LinkedIn because they are posting about content, and that actually applies even for small businesses and startups. So Molly is someone who launched a platform called Flexa, which is sort of a job advertising service for flexible companies, and they have this rating system anyway. And she shared that for a while, she was very focused on building the brand so that posting about flexible working 3 times a week, every week, like rain or shine, whatever happened. And that brought a lot of new customers to her platform because she was posting from her point of view and using her stories, but talking a lot about positioning herself as sort of an expert in flexible working issues. And that brought a lot of people to her business. So you can take that approach as a freelancer as well, besides all the other more, I'd say, standard things of having, a web presence. So that might be a website, it might be social media platforms, or any other way that you can find yourself. And obviously, because I'm a very pro networking person, always let people know that you're doing this and what your services are. People that you already know, even if they don't necessarily work in the same industry, they might know someone who needs that. And then attend industry specific networking events. That's obviously a really great tool to have. And I'd say that if you do go to co-working spaces, that's also a great way to meet more people, and maybe you'll need to exchange services and work together and collaborate. So those are just some strategies that I think I've used that have been good. But but I'll pop in some other people that talk a lot about there. And if anyone has found any good strategies here, please let people know. So yeah, okay, let me
I was
just
going to say as well, one tip that we've always found I've found quite helpful in the past, if you're sort of asking for a referral, be really specific on what a good referral actually looks like, because you want to make it as easy as possible for somebody talking about you to their network to be like, yeah, I know this person, they're really good at this, and this is the kind of service that they deliver. So it's super quick and super simple, because people get busy. You know, so if all of a sudden they think, well, I think you kind of do this and maybe you do that, that's not going to get you business coming your way. Whereas if you're like, you know, I know this person, they're a kick-ass graphic designer or whatever, and this is what they are an expert in, then the business can kind of absorb that and hopefully then, you know, ask that person to make a direct connection as well will normally help speed the process along on potentially at least you pitching for a piece of work. If not, you know, if you don't win, so be it, but at least, you know, you've had somebody connect you broadly in the right direction.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, you're gonna have to pitch yourself for many things, but it's part of the process. You have to pitch yourself in very different types of work as well. So I think that's a good one to just remember. And the more you do pitch with pitching, the more you do, the better you get at it. So it's kind of like you know, there's obviously strategies to do it, but you can try your best and then adapt from the results that you've been getting.
Yeah, I was going to say, try not to take the rejection too personally. I mean, some of our members, you know, they have days where they're like, oh God, I just can't take another rejection. What am I doing wrong? And they're just having a bad day. So they kind of have to go out for a walk or whatever, take a breath, and then come back a little bit more like, right, it's probably not me as such, but, you know, I'm obviously just not the right fit at the right time for this company. So what can you take and learn from it? And then, yeah, hopefully the next time you've improved a little bit, you know, and you sort of you win. But unfortunately, but from what we hear, rejection is a massive part of being self-employed. So you have to kind of have that thick skin to hearing a lot of no's for some of the yeses that you get.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Which on that note, someone asked, what are steps I should take now to launch a freelance career in a couple of months? So I guess Ipsy has like the business hub, which probably tells you what to do in terms of structure. Fix correct.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, the kind of the key bits you need to think about before you sort of start is, are you going to be a sole trader or a limited company? That's something only you can decide. Both have perks and both have negatives. So you just kind of, we do have lots of free information on our website that will kind of talk you through the differences between the two. I mean, we always recommend getting a business bank account, even if you are a sole trader, because I just think it's a really good habit to get into, having your business money separate from your financial money. Even though as a sole trader, obviously any debt and liabilities all come from you. But I think if you can just from day one see yourself as a business, then it really helps them when you're doing your P&L and you're using your accountancy software and everything. It all just kind of syncs together. And there's loads of great, like Xero, QuickBooks and all that. They all sync really nicely now with all the banking apps because of all the open banking that has to be done. So it's so much easier now than it used to be. And again, one day in the future, making tax digital may come in. They keep pushing it down the line, but that kind of means that you will need to be on an accounting software for your business. So you might as well just get into that habit from day one of just thinking about it, what's coming in, what's going out. And then what else? Yeah, there's insurance. You probably will need to get your professional indemnity insurance no matter what. So you might as well have a look for providers of that. And again, like as a Ipsy member, all our members get discounts on those sort of key insurances. And then you probably need to think about as well, you know, depending on what your service is, do you need a website? Most likely. So what platform are you gonna, you're gonna have Squarespace, Wix, what is it, the other one? I can't remember. It's just gone out of my head, but WordPress, there we go. I'm sure there's some other cool ones out there as well. So, you know, do you need a brand? Are you gonna have a professional email? We always suggest yes. You know, Google's really good. For a few pounds you get your professional email. So it's just thinking about, how do you want your clients to see you? Do you want them to see you as a professional? And I do think those small details on things like emails, having the bank account, just elevate you a little bit more potentially over your competitors. But obviously all of this does come with a cost. So it's deciding when's the right time to invest in those. If you're going to set up your own website, it's probably going to take you a couple of weekends. So thinking of the time associated with that. And then, yeah, you're going to have a business name as well. If you're going to be a limited company, you need to check on Companies House if it's already gone and maybe rethink. So there's lots of little micro steps that you probably just need to think through. But ultimately, if you're going to become self-employed, just get going. Really, you can sort of iterate as you're going. You're not going to get everything right straight away, but it certainly doesn't hurt to just take a stab at a business plan and the financials so that you know what you need to earn, and hopefully where you're going to get it from as you go along. But you're going to make mistakes. We can offer as much advice as possible. So, if for anyone that's part of the community, you can just kind of pick up the phone as well. Our team are always happy to answer questions too. There's lots of humans that work at Ipsy as well. So
that's really good. I was gonna say that obviously there's a whole structure side of things. I definitely recommend having a business account. Also, it helps you to get things organized, and eventually it's possible, or it might be likely that you even bring, I don't know, a finance assistant or an accountant, and then having a software, having everything in one place, it's gonna make your life so much easier. Will also let you see exactly how much you're spending on things and all of that. But yeah, I recommend having the basics as well in terms of what it is. So like, what is your service? Having a little think about who are your ideal clients, really making a list, and then having a copy like about you, what your services are, describing the services, how are you going to sell them, and having all that sort of marketing material kind of ready to go. Of course, you can change it slightly, but you can keep adapting it, but you're gonna need that anyway if you sign up, even if you sign up for something like a freelancing platform like Fiverr, Upwork, whatever. You're gonna need to have all that information, so you might as well have that from the get-go. And I'm someone who comes from a background of being a producer and events manager especially, so I'm very big on budgeting as a tool to structure your business. So if you make a budget of like, okay, to get the structure going on, I'm going to need to register this. This is going to cost this much. I'm going to need to sign up to a platform. This is how much it's going to cost. I'm going to have accounting software. Like, make sure that you have everything in one and you sort of cost it out. And then you can put some like check marks of like, I'm going to do this by this time, or I'm going to do this by this time. So then you end up with sort of a cost of starting the business and a bit of a estimation of how much it's going to cost to run that business of being a freelancer. And then you can give yourself some deadlines to do all of that in time, as Vix was saying, because things take a bit of time to create and to deliver. And you are probably, if you're not a freelancer yet, you're probably doing this in parallel with your current job. So you are probably going to use time of like evenings, weekends. So try to be realistic with how much time you can do this, so you don't overwhelm yourself with the get-go, because it can be that it takes a bit more time to do things. And I would just say that getting things done and moving is better than just being stuck into trying to get everything perfect. People have a very short memory span. So if you made a typo on your website or something like that, just try to not, kill yourself over this. Probably no one else noticed. As long as you're doing this and trying to get there, you'll probably be okay. Just checking if there's just conversation. I'm loving that a lot of people are connecting, but if anyone has questions, let me know. And I posted, just so everyone asking, there is a 10% discount on the Ipsy community membership. You just use code Ella Networking. It's also on our Instagram bio, the link. So, but I popped it here as well. Cool. Here we go. Registering. One sec. One question I've got, well, I got more than once. I think we do have quite an international community, so this is probably not something that's totally on my expertise or Ipsy's, but someone asked how to do contracts and invoices for international clients. I think contracts, you can use your standard, and it's likely that it might be that the client sends the contract to you. I mean, I've worked with a company in Germany and they had a standard contract, so obviously you can read it and then decide if that's okay and negotiate on some terms. But they have done the whole contracting and invoicing and payment through this platform called DEEL, which is, I think, especially for international contractors. And on the service provider side of things, it was really smooth. So if anyone is trying that, I don't know any others that well, actually, but if anyone has advice, please pop them in the chat. I just wanted to get that one out of the way. And then there was a question which I thought was really interesting, which is what can employers think about people who have freelanced in the past and intend to continue freelancing alongside a job? So I'd say that if it's a full-time job, you probably need to tell your employer that you want to do this. You have to say, and it's likely that the employer will be, won't be too excited if you're expected to do a full-time job and freelance on the side, because they're not going to fully understand how you're going to do both things. But you should definitely tell them. If it's a part-time job, it's probably something that you can be upfront about, like, oh, if I work for you 3 times a week, on the other 2 days I freelance or I do this or that. But always, I would recommend that you always be upfront with whoever you're working with, because there might be things such as conflict of interest. You're getting like different clients from the same thing, so you can't just like do it in the down low, because it can really impact your day-to-day job, obviously depending on what it is. But I would say you try to tell them in general, so that, but if it's a full-time job, I don't know all employers. I can't do like a blanket statement, but it's possible that this is a issue for them. So
yeah, I was going to say most employers will have in your contract that you can't work for another company if you work for them full time, because their argument is, when would you be working for them? So yeah, you would normally have to drop down your hours. I think a lot of people do part-time, PAYE work, and then a couple of days a week sort of freelancing, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that, but you'd normally need to reduce your PAYE work down, which is a perfectly acceptable way of getting started as a freelance as well, because it means you can still pay your rent or your mortgage. You're not sort of fully jumping in, and you might want to test as well what sectors you want to work in, or you're not fully up to speed on what your particular USP is. It gives you a bit of scope to kind of test and learn. But again, you do often need a good employer that's going to understand that because if you're really invaluable, they might not want to lose you. So, but then some people also work as PAYE, and then when they go freelance, the company they used to work for sometimes employs them on a freelance basis for a few contracts. So it's worth having those conversations, but be prepared that your existing employer might not be over the moon.
yeah. Someone asked me especially, do you any spaces you recommend working from? So okay, this is a tricky one. I think it depends on first of all, if you're working with someone else, then probably an office or a co-working space. And then there are different ones you can pay monthly. You can just go and use on the day. Then, there's tons. Oh, I think Ipsy has a partnership with Enco, right? Which is one that I love, because it's basically, you can choose anywhere you are in the city, you can find a place and book it and go work from there. They used a lot of like hotel spaces and lobbies that are unused for this. If I have a lot of phone calls or meetings, which I end up having quite a bit, I try to book that on a full day, and then I do it all from my house, because I find it very distracting to have other people around me if I'm in a phone call or in a meeting. but that's me personally. And some co-working spaces won't have always like a room for you to do that. But that said, I think it's really key, and I think this is for everyone who works on their own or they're a freelancer, is that you understand how you work best. Because one of the best things about being a freelancer is you get to decide how you spend your day. So if you are a early bird, you can actually, and you're like, oh, I'm going to work between 5 a.m. and 9, and I'm going to get everything done. And then between 11 and 3, I'm going to be doing something else. And then I'm going to work again for an hour afterwards. Great. That's your schedule. That's how you work best. Then you figure those things out. Some people work really well only in the evening. So they will do all their like hard work, like applications, pitching, writing late at night when no one else is around. And then they will split some time for admin and other works that you're all gonna have to end up doing. There's a lot of admin that goes into freelancing, like responding to emails, making sure you're paying everything, that you're updating your website, whatever it is. Getting invoices out, getting contracts out, all that stuff. And maybe you do that, in the mornings, or you do that in the afternoon. And for that, you feel like you concentrate better being somewhere else. I think it really depends. As I mentioned, Enco is really cool. I met them before even meeting Team Ipsy. It's really useful. I sometimes, if I need to do a lot of deep work, I find a cafe that has no Wi-Fi, and that it forces me to do that work. So that's an option as well. But yeah, definitely try to pay attention to sort of your own workflow and how you work best, so that you can adapt and find the best space for you. And then you can decide based on location, based on type of industry. There are different communities and event spaces and memberships and, co-working spaces that are for specific industries or for type of people. And they, so I'd say that's the best advice. But I am a bit of I need a lot of deep, quiet space to work. And then when I'm working with anyone else, then I go somewhere else, because then obviously it's a lot easier, in my personal opinion and experience, to collaborate with someone if you're working at the same time face to face. But that will depend on each person. So cool. Let me see. Okay, I also schedule emails. Yes, when I'm writing. Okay, so yeah, I love blocking time to do everything. I block time to look at emails, block time to go over whatever, everything on my day is planned in that way. And I use this tool called Pomo Focus, which is free. And you just it releases a timer when you need to do things, and you tell yourself, you can tell how many, do you want to do blocks of 20 minutes, blocks of 30 minutes, blocks of 45. And I love it. It's a free tool, and it definitely works for me most of the time. But again, that will go with each person, I think. Sorry, I'm just going through the list. Okay, now, any tips for gaining confidence when it comes to negotiating your rates and asking for more money than a first made offer? Is it ever good to take the amount you are first offered for a freelance role, or should you always seek to politely negotiate? Vix, do you have any insights?
I mean, I think this is one of these ones that every time it will be different. It probably depends on the scope of the work, the company, the budget. If you genuinely believe the budget they've given is their genuine budget, then there is no room to negotiate. A lot of companies don't have very large budgets. And often the reason they're getting somebody self-employed is because they want someone that's a genuine expert and that's just going to get on with it. But they can only pay what they can pay. I mean, it is a tricky one. I mean, it never hurts to ask. But again, it does come down to the person. I mean, if you're asking for more money, I guess they're going to want to know why you think you're worth more money. So you need to be able to answer that question. So if you can give an example that, as well as all this you bring to the table, you've got this extra expertise, or you've got this person that you could pull in as an expert, it's sort of, you know, demonstrating why that extra money should be spent and invested. So if you can't answer the question yourself as to why you think you're worth more money, then, you know, it makes it much harder to negotiate, because at all times you want to come across as professional and not just sort of chancing it. So, you know, try and think of it from the other person's point of view, and what answer would you perhaps want to hear if somebody was asking that of you. So it will be trial and see, I think, but go prepared if you are going to ask for more money, I would say.
Yes, I think it depends a lot on the type of client. Nonprofits and charities will usually have a fee, and that's what they get because they get a budget to work. But I think this is why it's really important that you define your day rate as a basis, and you know exactly what you get to deliver in an 8-hour day. So that if they're telling you to do something that they are telling you, oh, it only takes 2 days, and you're saying, oh, this will actually take, I don't know, 5, not 8, 2 days. And then maybe there's a way to negotiate in that way. But yeah, I would say it really is a case by case. But the confidence thing, I think, comes a lot from doing it and from learning and understanding, actually, this does take 3 days and not 1 day. So next time, if I'm charging, I need to charge this instead of that. So I think it's a learning curve from both sides of the equation.
And sometimes you have to just make a terrible mess up to learn from it. You know, I remember I was selling a product that I'd designed many years ago, and the first time I pitched it to try and sell it, the phone call was such a disaster. I even asked the person if I could end the phone call because I recognized I was doing such a terrible job. And I said, could I come back to them in an hour's time once I've got myself together and I actually know what I'm talking about? And would he listen to me again? And graciously he did. So I went away, gave myself a talking to, and really sorted myself out. And then luckily the guy bought it. But you know, it always stuck with me that I thought I was prepared, but my God, I was not. So you know, it's good to make mistakes sometimes.
Yes, you're gonna do some anyway, so you might as well accept it. Someone asked, how do you have tips for balancing personal projects with working for a company, or freelancing and working for a company? So I'm assuming this person does part-time or something, but I think my advice is sort of what I said in the beginning, is to block time in your free time to get things done, and understand, if you work best in the morning, then you wake up 15 minutes before you usually wake up, and for 15 minutes you do that. I think my main tip is to be very, very honest with yourself, your time, and just remember that time it's not something we have, like, you can't make your day last 48 hours. So you have sort of two options. One, you delegate some stuff to someone else, and that might be like, someone else goes and does grocery for you instead of you, like your partner helps with the cooking and the cleaning, so you don't do that on 3 days a week, so you do something else, I don't know, or you hire someone to come and clean your apartment once a week, like whatever. So you delegate some time of something you do that wastes your time to dedicate to that sort of activity, or you give up on doing something else. So it's like, oh, I'm not gonna, I'm gonna wake up 15 minutes early, or instead of going to see my friends every Thursday, I'm gonna go every other Thursday, so that on one Thursday I'm doing work. So that's why I would say, I think the best tip is to be really honest with your time and what you do, and then decide, because something's gonna give. You're not gonna be a superhuman who suddenly needs 3 hours of sleep and can perform at a crazy pace for everything. So I think that's the main thing. There's a really good book about it called 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman, which I recommend for everyone who gets overwhelmed with to-do lists. And he also has like a free newsletter. I'll link to all of it afterwards, but yeah, so that you really become more honest with your time and your capacity as a human being. Cool. There were some other questions that I think were very much like, how do I get a unique tax reference number, all those things, but they are mostly all self-explanatory, and Ipsy has a big hub and also like lots of Q&As and resources that you can check. So I'm not gonna get into too much of this. Someone also asked, I feel like I'm a jack of all trades. I'm about to set up my own website. Is it good to have sections for all the different elements, show my skills in variety, or keep it clear cut? I feel like everyone's gonna be mad at us because the answer is all like depends, right? I think it depends if the services that you provide relate to one another, then you can have it all in one website and just list them at different services. Or if you are trying to brand yourself as an expert in one thing, particularly, and that's the thing you're going to start your business with. And I'd say that try to remove the idea that, oh, I'll only do this one thing if I focus on this. Maybe you're going to focus on this right now because that's where most of the money is, most of the jobs are, or is the way in for people to get to know you. And then you can add on other services that you might provide later down the line. It's absolutely not a problem to do more than one thing. But you can, you can provide your services in one description or then in two things. If you can find, I think if there's some sort of way to communicate how one thing sort of feeds into the other, that will make a better thing, like a better pitch. But otherwise, you can just focus on one thing to start with and then add on other things once you already have the conversation on, or once your personal brand is really established as that one thing, and then you can bring other things that you want to do or that you also do well. And you already have clients in one area and see if they're interested in taking you on for more work, which I think in general is a good rule of thumb. Like when you have a client, it's a lot harder to find new clients and to stay working with the same one. So if you find a client, and then you realize, oh, actually they have this other pain point and this is something that I could also offer, maybe I can add a bigger pitch to them when they ask me for something. That's a really nice way to build on your business or have like repeat customers, because that's going to be a lot easier than just always pitching yourself all the time, right? Vix, I don't know if you have any insights or stats on for this, but I feel like in general you waste more time trying to find a new client than keeping one happy and expanding your offer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a massive advocate of people being a jack of all trades. Like it often gets sort of dismissed as, oh, you're not focused or whatever. But actually, I think it can be a huge asset, because one of the things you'll need being self-employed is to be able to be agile. And actually, if you've got 2 or 3 elements where you're really strong, you might find that actually the market dries up in one area, but actually if you've got other expertise, and this was really prevalent in COVID, to be fair, like a lot of people's businesses overnight disappeared, no one was spending any money, and we found it incredibly inspiring how many people went, well, actually I picked up this minor part of what I do and I managed to actually earn some income during that period, whereas if I hadn't have had that breadth of skill, that would have never happened. So you definitely need to probably have your primary area that you're selling that expertise to. But another nice thing is you can always be testing other areas of employment and developing in the background different skill sets. So it could be you're a copywriter, but actually you're doing a UX course in the background, so then that will then feed in depending on what it is. So yeah, you probably need quite a clear message of who you are and what you offer and why you're different when you're starting up, but don't forget about all the extra skills that you've got. And if you need to change your website as well, don't be afraid to do that, because you will need to pivot at some point, or depending on cost, you could have 2. I mean, a lot of people do it with their CVs. They have 4 different CVs, and depending on what their strength is, they'll put that forward, and all 4 will look completely different. So
just a quick note, we just did a workshop with Squarespace, with a Squarespace expert on building your website, and we answered some of those questions. Still on our Instagram to watch, so if anyone is interested. Then there was one question that someone asked, how do you know that you've had enough experience to become a freelancer, which I think it's a very interesting question, because you can actually just be a freelancer right from the get-go. And in a lot of industries, that's almost that's a very common thing. Like, so like in film and TV, a lot of people will start out as set runners, or people like, and I think photography as well. You're going to work in different sets. So you're registered with something that it's called a diary service, and you sort of get a lot of jobs here and there. So that might be actually the most common way to enter the industry for some paths. And so if you want to work in events and you start out working in different events and that's it, you're already a freelancer, as a freelance event producer. So that's a path. So you don't necessarily, and then you start growing in terms of like how much responsibility you have. I know of quite a few journalists that start freelancing while in journalism school, and so become freelance journalists as soon as they graduate. So I think it does depend a bit on what is this type of work you're gonna do. But I don't know if you know of like how much experience people usually have when they come to Ipsy or anything like that. Because
I mean, it really depends,
yeah.
I mean, some people now are, like you said, they're at university and they're doing freelance work as part of their course to just earn extra money. So they've just got a natural talent for it and are happy to just get on with it. A lot of it does come down to you as a person. I mean, some people need to have had a job and have built that sort of experience to give them the confidence to work for themselves. So, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. There's also nothing wrong with trying freelancing for a bit, feeling like you haven't got quite enough experience, getting a job for a bit and then trying again. So it absolutely comes down to you and how you feel confident, and do you think you've got enough experience to actually deliver what the client needs at the end of the day. There isn't really a good answer. You just need to listen to yourself, but not doubt yourself too much either, because a lot of people do tend to doubt their ability a lot more, So yeah, there's no right answer really, I don't think, for that one.
Yeah, and I think there were a few questions of like, oh, which communities have you or support networks have you used to set yourself up? And I think there are different ones. Obviously, Ipsy has a community side of things as well. I think right, Vix, you can say more
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all of our community are, self-employed people. Some have got side hustles, but most of our members are full-time self-employed, because obviously there's a membership associated with it. So you normally need to be able to afford it comfortably. I mean, our cheapest one's only £100 for the year, so it's not a lot of money, but we do a lot of our members are probably 10 years into their career and feel really, really confident. But we are seeing more and more people join at the start, because we've really enhanced the amount of knowledge that we've got to help people at the start, whereas we used to be very focused on those that were later stage experts. So as we're shifting our focus, we're seeing more and more people join at the start. So sorry, I've forgotten the question.
No, yeah, but other communities, I can obviously Island Networking is a community you can join. There's like people, there's socials, we have events that we host.
Yeah.
I think there are different ways to find support. I actually have a group. You can find support. You can go to associations, so like you can go to Ipsy, right? But you can also go, I don't know, join the Association of Women in Music in Bristol or something. There are tons of associations that are like professional associations for almost everything in the UK. So you can find those. Those are great ways. You can find communities in your own co-working spaces that if you attend, those are ways to build on a community. There are a few communities that I know personally that people love. So Found and Flourish by Lara Sheldrick is one, especially it's for women and non-binary people who are setting up their own businesses, and that is really successful. A lot of people love being a part of it. I have my own little sort of community that I've set up with a few colleagues that I've worked with in the past, and we ended up just trying to schedule chats, and we have like a WhatsApp group just to talk about things that are going on. I think even there's a lot that can be said about managing, like having conversations with your peers, because they might be going through exactly the same thing as you are. But of course, there are mentoring schemes and programs like that that might be beneficial. So I would say that it's a bit of testing things out to see where sort of your crowd is and the people you vibe with the most are, and also who is giving you insights. But on that note, I like everyone to remember that you have a lot of power in your social platforms that you're going to be using for work. So if that's your, I don't know, the newsletters you subscribe to, the people you follow on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and TikTok, on Twitter, X, whatever, who are you following? Who are you hearing from? Who's giving you insights? Why is that a beneficial person for you to see their content or not? Like, you can connect with so many people on the digital space as well that could be really beneficial for you and support you in that endeavor. And you can also be the person supporting others. I see a lot of interesting threads. So on Twitter, there's a lot of like threads for freelancers as well, like people asking for things or sharing opportunities. So I think it's about, again, figuring out a few strategies, but definitely having things like Ipsy or other communities, or being part of these programs or these other groups, you know, these associations, they can be really helpful, especially I think if you're starting out and maybe you don't have a lot of people doing the same thing, then you can actually ask advice from people that have done something like that, and you can learn a lot more and feel just better, to feel supported in general by your career choices than not. So if all your friends are doctors and you're going to be a freelance graphic designer, then finding a community is probably a good step to take. Oh my God, we got to the time. Sorry, there are still a few questions, but we'll try to do something else. Just a quick recap. This was a workshop supported by Ipsy, who are our partners. They're offering 10% off on their community membership, which gives you a lot of benefits like tax advice, legal helpline, community, a lot of cool stuff. It's all on our Insta and our website. If anyone has more questions about freelance, setting up your business, we're gonna open again the side hustle open hours, which is something we do over our online networking soon. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And if you would like to see more events like this, more workshops, please let me know. But I would like to take this last few minutes just to thank everyone for showing up, and also to thank Vix for being here and sharing all our insights with us. Just tell everyone again just how to find Ipsy and where to go.
Yeah, sorry. I've got a builder drilling. I'm hoping it's not going to get too loud. Yeah, for our point of view, our website is www.ipsy, so ipse.co.uk. I'm happy for my email to be shared as well around if anybody wanted to connect or has any questions. Very, very happy to field some of those as well. So hopefully the drilling's not too loud, sorry. But yeah, thank you for having me today. It's been great. And yeah, we've got loads and loads of free advice as well. We don't, you don't have to be a member of Ipsy to get the benefit of our knowledge. So do go check out our advice section. And we also run loads of free webinars as well on all sorts of topics. So by all means, come along to some of those if you like the look of the titles.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Vixen. Yeah, for everyone who's in London, we're hosting our final networking event in real life of the year, believe it or not, next week on the 23rd of November at Acrylicize, this beautiful space in East London, with Jess Bruno, who is the founder of the Content Club. It's for freelancers, creatives, and people who own creative businesses around. There's going to be lots of offers as well. You get to get prizes, there'll be a photographer, music, drinks. It'll be super fun and casual. So if you're interested, come to that. And we are going to post this Q&A on the YouTube channel soon. Everyone should receive the link so you can rewatch it. And then I'll add some of the links of the things we discussed here there, including the Ipsy membership link, so you can rewatch this. And thank you all for coming. I hope this was useful, and I'll see you all soon. Thank you so much again, Vix and the Ipsy team, for having us.
Thanks. Okay, bye.
Bye, everyone.